Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. We have a lot to talk about again today. Dragons are taking off, or maybe you would prefer dragons are heating up, whichever. You're going to see a number of them in the video today. Also, we got a first look at the two Innistrad sets that are coming out this fall, and we even saw some preview cards from the first set, Innistrad Midnight Hunt. There is a little bit of an impact from those reveals on card prices. You'll see that today in the video too, and a whole lot of other things. Again, we're going to have a $2 threshold this week. We're not going to talk about any cards that are moving less than $2 up or down. Also, we're going to continue to avoid any cards that are being really egregiously market manipulated. Although there is a lot less of that happening now compared to a number of weeks ago. Quickly though, before we get started, just a fast reminder, if you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use the Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can now pick up Adventures in the Forgotten Realms products there. They have restocked. I know a lot of people were asking about that. They also have a number of other things on their website, so check it out. Remember, if your order is over $100 or it consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. Also, whenever you use the promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated, so thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. We'll begin with the Standard Legal Spotlight. This is where we discuss cards that are Standard Legal moving the most this week. We'll start things off with the first dragon of the day, Old Gnawbone. It goes up 333 this week to 2761. The reason dragons are hot, the reason you're going to see so many today, is because a lot of Commander players are picking them up. And that is because, of course, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms really did push the dragon tribe. Some are trying to pick up new dragons like this one. Others are going back, picking up dragons from the past. You're going to see some of those in the video today, too. When it comes to this one, this is already a fairly popular commander. Also a good upgrade to the Draconic Rage commander deck that just came out. And there's cards from that Draconic Rage commander deck that a lot of people are just taking out and building around from scratch, and they're using this card. You're going to find this in builds around Vrondis, Rage of Ancients, Clouth, Unrivaled Ancient, and Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. This is also showing up in builds around a card from the regular set, of course, Tiamat. And obviously, there's still a lot of people building around the Dragon and some other existing cards that have been out there. You're going to see a lot of players putting this in those builds too. And our second card is also a Dragon, Goldspan Dragon, up 463 this week to 4113. So let's talk about Standard first, because this does see Standard play. It's in Prismari Midrange, Jeskai Tempo, and more, but obviously it's also seeing a lot more Commander play. First off, yes, this is a good upgrade to Draconic Rage. You can also put this in fresh builds around Wolfgar of Icewind Dale, Clouth, Unrivaled Ancient. I see a lot of that. It is also a good upgrade to another Commander deck, though, Planar Portal. That is a very popular Commander deck right now. A lot of people are picking that one up, upgrading it. And there's a particular commander in that deck that a lot of people are building fresh around too, and that's Prosper Tomebound. On top of that, of course, this is in other dragon builds like the Dragon or Tiamat again. And it's also found in Kalain Reclusive Painter builds too, another new card from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. And our last card in this section is Brazen Borrower, but this is the copy from the list that was only there during Zendikar Rising. It goes up 727 this week to 4776. In Standard, this is in Prismari Midrange and more. This is rotating out this fall, but it is still a good card in a lot of other places. Pioneer, it's in Is It Phoenix, Modern, Crashing Footfalls, Living End, many times Is It Tempo and more there. Also gets a little legacy play, and it is seeing some additional commander play now in Volo, Guide to Monsters, and Xanathar Guild Kingpin decks. And that takes us to the Pioneer Legal Spotlight. First, we have a card going down in value. That is Spire Bluff Canal. It goes down 201 this week to 2723. Now, this got hot recently because Modern Horizons 2 came out, shook up that Modern format, and there were a lot of players scrambling to build new decks, change some of their old decks around. And when that happens, lands and sideboard cards especially tend to heat up because they do cross over into a lot of different builds. This card saw some pretty aggressive spikes. Now it is retracting, trying to find its new price point. First off, though, let's talk about Pioneer. This is in Is It Phoenix? Is It in Soul? In Modern, though, you're going to find this in Is It Tempo? Living End, Blitz, Jeskai Stoneblade, Urza's Kitchen, sometimes Crashing Footfalls, and more. Also, this is a good mana-based card in a lot of commander decks, too. Our first card going up in value in this section happens to be a dragon. This is Utvara Hellkite. The Commander 2017 copy is up 202 to 1314. The Ravnica Allegiance Rakdos Guild Kit copy goes up 206 to 1393. Of course, this is another dragon you might find in Commander builds like the Ur-Dragon, or new ones like Tiamat, Verandis Rage of Ancients, Clouth Unrivaled Ancient, Wolfgar Icewind Dale, and also, of course, this is a good upgrade to Draconic Rage. Resplendent Angel. This is not a dragon, it is an angel, going up 281 to 2499, but this card is getting a little bit of a push from a new card as well. That is the Book of Exalted Deeds from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. In fact, there are 4 of both of those cards in a new Selesnya Pioneer deck. Also, this is seeing a little more Commander play now because of that card, and it is showing up in Trelasara Moondancer builds as well, which of course is another new card from Adventures. Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth from the list. Now, this joined the list with Modern Horizons 2, also was reprinted recently in Time Spiral Remastered, but this copy is going up 284 to 2859. In spite of the recent reprintings, this has been a hot card due to the fact that Cabal Coffers was reprinted in Modern Horizons 2, and those two cards often see play together in Commander. Now, in Pioneer, you will find this card in some builds, Rakdos Pyromancer and more. Modern, it's an Eldrazi Tron, Yawgmoth Sacrifice, Orzhov Smallpox, Hell's Kitchen, sometimes Orzhov Stoneblade, and more. This also gets Legacy play, and like I was alluding to earlier, it is a big Commander card in many decks, and it's now seeing more play in Xanathar Guild Kingpin as well. Also, I have seen some players getting this to upgrade Planar Portal, or build around Prosper Tomebound from scratch. Revel in Riches, the Mystery Booster copy up 251 to 1368, the Ixalan copy up 292 to 1385, and this is another really good upgrade to Planar Portal, or another card you can put in a fresh Prosper deck. And it was mentioned as such in a Command Zone podcast episode this week that could have brought some more attention to it. Plus, it is also getting more Commander play in Klein Reclusive Painter builds. And finally, for this section, we have Dragonlord Dramoka from Dragons of Tarkir. This goes up 552 to 3989. Now, they did just add this to the list with Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. I haven't been really talking about list cards that were added with that set yet because they are still stabilizing and trying to find their price point. This week, that copy was pretty stable, but this one is still going up in value, as you can see. Here is yet another dragon, of course, getting a push from that support, seeing additional Commander play now around 2 cards from the new set, Tiamat, of course, and to a lesser degree, Drizzt Do'Urden. That takes us to the Modern Legal Spotlight. Modern has been the format to watch recently, and that hasn't really changed. Still a lot of cards moving quite a bit because of new Modern builds. Let's look at cards going down first, though. Cabal Coffers, that Plane Chase copy down 514 to 6239, going down because of the reprinting in Modern Horizons 2. Now, that reprinting did make this card Modern Legal, but it's not really doing a whole lot right now in that environment. It is a great Commander card, though, like I said earlier, getting more play now in Xanathar Guild Kingpin, Prosper Tomebound, also a good upgrade in Planar Portal, of course. Defense Grid from 8th edition. Now, this card's been hot for a couple weeks, spiking pretty strongly. It does retract some, though, this week, down 522 to 2698. Modern players have been looking for different sideboard options, like I alluded to earlier. This particular option, even though a lot of players were trying it over the last couple weeks, seems to be fading out. The meta is moving away from it. With that being said, though, this does continue to see play in Legacy. It's in the Epic Storm, Omnitel, and more. As for Commander, I have seen some players adding this to Planar Portal, as well, of course, new Prosper decks. Shizo Death Storehouse from Champions of Kamigawa, another card that was moving pretty aggressively up recently, now going down 622 to 3995. Now, this did get a reprint as a foil in Mystery Booster retail packs, but that copy is pretty stable right now. When it comes to the reason why this got hot when it did, a lot of players were picking it up to add it to the Modern Rakdos Luris build. Typically now, though, when it does show up in that build, it is only a one of. So now that the dust is settling in that format, I do think the demand on this card is starting to wane a little bit. This has also seen some increased Commander play, though. It's in Karazika, the Eye Tyrant builds there. It also can be a decent upgrade to Planar Portal. Twilight Mire from Eventide, another card that was hot. This one was spiking last week. This week it goes down $6.29 to $27. This is one of those lands that a lot of people were trying to pick up during the meta shakeup. Now, as things are progressing, it seems like you only see this card for the most part in Yawgmoth Sacrifice. It is still a big mana-based card in Commander, however. Next, we have Archive Trap from the list that joined the list with Strixhaven. It's going down this week, $7.28 to $29.61, again after some pretty big spikes over the last few weeks. This got hot when Adventures in the Forgotten Realms came out and Tasha's Hideous Laughter began to push the Modern Mill deck. That deck has gained a lot of momentum in the meta over the course of the last 2 weeks. You're starting to see quite a bit of it. Now this also gets vintage play, it's Ngolo Stacks, Hollow Vine, and more. Also sees a little commander play too. And the last card going down in value is another one that spiked pretty aggressively last week. Wooded Foothills from Onslaught. It goes down 1074 though this week to 103.39. Now these Onslaught fetch lands have been all over the place. Originally, they started jumping when Time Spiral Remastered came out because a lot of players became interested in those retro frames. Then they started to cool off a little bit. All of a sudden, that modern meta shakeup happened, and you started to see people scrambling to pick up lands of different kinds. They started to move up again. Now, when it comes to playability, of course, you're going to see fetch lands in Modern, Legacy, Vintage, and Commander decks old and new. I'm Rakul of the Aeon's Torn. This is the copy from Rise of the Eldrazi. This was on the list, but it did leave after Kjell time. Regardless, though, this copy is going up $10.65 this week to $69. Of course, this is banned in Commander, but in Modern, you're going to find this in 4-color Control, Glimpse, Cascade, and more. Many times now, you see this come out of the sideboard against mill decks. In Legacy, this is an Omnitel, Sneak and Show, Mono Green Cloudpost, Enchantress, and sometimes Doomsday. Flamekin Harbinger. This is another card that does have a printing as a Mystery Booster Retail Edition foil. That copy's moving up a little bit this week, but these other two copies are moving the most. Lorwyn up $5.63 to $10.99, and Plane Chase up $11.09 to $15.99. So this is in the 5-color Elemental deck in Modern, and that is what is pushing these price points. That deck is now one of the more popular choices in the meta. In fact, last Saturday, it came in first in a Modern challenge on MTGO, and that really began to push the deck and the prices of some of the cards in the deck like this one. Additionally, this does get some commander play in builds like Omnith Locus of the Royal and more. Chalice of the Void. Wow, 3 weeks in a row, all 4 copies of these have been spiking. Modern Masters goes up this week $10.06 to $68. Mirrodin up $10.56 to $74.99. Masters 25 up $12.16 to $71.74. And Time Spiral Remastered up $15.77 to $70.59. So, like I said earlier, this is a popular Modern sideboard option. And because multiple decks are looking for these type of cards, this has been extremely hot. Also, this gets Legacy, Vintage, and a little Commander play. Plus, there were 4 of these in a Legacy Minotaur deck that performed really well on MTGO this past week. This isn't the last card from that deck you're going to see in the video today. Blackcleave Cliffs from Scars of Mirrodin. This goes up $16.57 to $56.99 this week. Here's another mana-based card that a lot of people in Modern have been trying to pick up recently. You're going to find this in Grixis, Rakdos, and Jund Luris. Also in other Jund builds, Mardu Stoneblade. Plus, this is a solid Commander mana-based card, and it's probably not a coincidence that it shares color identity with Prosper Tomebound and the Planar Portal Commander deck. And the big mover in the Modern format this week is Wrenn and 6, the list copy. This goes up $4.66 to $100.99. This did leave after Kjell time, and the Modern Horizons copy went up $17.37 to $115.99. Okay, first off, this does see a ton of play. Modern 4-color Control builds, Scape Shift, Luris Jund, Niv to Light, sometimes 5-color Elementals, and more. It is banned in Legacy, but it does get some Vintage and Commander play. The reason it's moving like this, though, ties into a preview card that we just saw from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Here's the card, Wrenn and 7. A lot of players and speculators are thinking that perhaps Wrenn and 6 will see more play when this card comes out, in Commander probably, if nowhere else. Alright, that takes us to the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we talk about cards that see play in Legacy, Vintage, 93, 94, or cards that are popular among collectors this week. And again, yes, there's a lot of market manipulation out there when it comes to these cards, but not as much as we were seeing, which is good news. Just be careful if you're making any purchases. The other big thing to be aware of, especially when it comes to the older cards, there's a lot more people getting their cards graded. And when you look at those price tracking websites, typically you're seeing a price that reflects the combination of high-grade graded and high-grade raw copies of the card. Now, in this section of the video, the prices you're going to see on the screen are going to be very similar to what you might find on a price tracking website. But if the price isn't in the middle of that number when it comes to high-grade raw versus high-grade graded, I'll let you know. In other words, if it's leaning towards one or the other, or if there's market manipulation happening, I'll let you know that too. First, we have Savannah from Revised. It goes up $6.17 this week to $372.49. Darkness. This is the copy from Legends. It goes up $10.02 to $29.08. The Time Spiral copy has been hot for the last couple weeks, and this card does see play in those Modern mill builds. plus it gets a little commander play. Army of Allah, this is the Arabian Nights A variation. You have the darker casting cost in the upper right-hand corner. It goes up $10.64 this week to $49.99. Sandals of Abdallah, this goes up $12.80 this week to $141.24. Herz's Miter, this is up $13.31 to $92.59. Dark Pact from Unlimited, it goes up $14.02 to $59.99. Plateau from Revised, up $14.80 this week to $347.29. Roga of Kirkeep, this goes up $14.98 this week to $159.97. Johan from Legends, it goes up $16.88 to $74.11. Lion's Eye Diamond is back. It's up $20.72 this week to $5.99. You'll find this in Legacy Karn Echoes, Doomsday, the Epic Storm, and more. Also gets commander play in various builds. Gaia's Cradle from Urza Saga, not a huge percentage increase, but this is moving up again too. Up $22.50 to $1,039.99. In Legacy, this is an Elves and Maverick. Vintage Hallowvine. It is an expensive card, but if you do have a copy, it is a great commander card. I have seen this in some new Volo Guide to Monsters builds too. Berserk, this is in Legacy. In fact, also seeing some more commander play in Dristo Erden builds now. Conspiracy Take the Crown goes up $206 to $34.85. Unlimited is up $23.25 to $223.24. Flying Carpet from Arabian Nights is up $25.32 to $95.72. Falling Star goes up $27.32 to $254.99. Winter Orb from Unlimited up $27.99 to $166.98. Hurkyl's Recall, this has seen a little modern and Legacy sideboard play. It is a bigger vintage card though, and Paradoxical Outcome and more there. Also it gets some commander play in Joyra Weatherlight Captain builds and more. 10th edition goes up $424 to $1014. Antiquities up $37.49 to $179.98. Solkanar, the Swamp King, this is the copy from Legends, up $39.98 this week to $198.94. Although I think if I pulled the prices at the exact same time this week as I did last week, this may have fallen off. It has been pretty stable. Northern Paladin, this is the copy from Unlimited, up $54.56 to $119.94. Force Field from Unlimited, up $92.50 to $696.49. City of Brass from Arabian Nights, up $101.83 to $617.71. Singing Tree. Now there is some inflation around this price point. In theory, it's going up $120.03 to $1,139.99. However, when you look at true sales, high-grade raw copies are about $270, graded copies about $770. Sorceress Queen from Arabian Nights, very similar story here, but not as strong. This is going up in theory $132.01 to $410. High-grade raw copies are selling for about $170, high-grade graded copies for about $360. Raging River from Unlimited goes up $137.98 to $325. Scrubland from Unlimited, this goes up $138.01 to $997.50, but in reality, I have seen high-grade raw copies sell for around this price point. I have not seen any high-grade graded copies sell for a while, but I do think next time one does, it could be quite a bit higher than this. Deck and Blackblade, the copy from Legends, up $163.88 to $699.99. Eye for an Eye from Arabian Nights. This has been on the list for 3 weeks in a row now, I think. It goes up $205.20 this week to $278.49. However, that price point is closer to a high-grade graded copy than a raw copy. High-grade graded ones are going for about $370. High-grade raw copies, though, are still selling for about $35. And finally, in this section, we have Juzam Jin. This goes up $800.90 to $5,000 even. Is that for real? Well, again, that's a price that you would expect to pay for a high-grade graded copy. High-grade raw copies can get up to about $2,600, though. All right, that's going to bring us to the best of the rest. And yes, this is pretty much the Commander Spotlight. However, because of the recent activity in the modern market, I did want to change this section, at least for a while, so we could look at a broader range of cards. Still, though, a lot of the cards you're going to see today are moving, at least in part, because of Commander. Uba Mask is up $205 to $1408. This is another card that players are picking up to upgrade Planar Portal, or maybe build around Prospered Tomebound again. And this was mentioned as such on the Command Zone podcast this week. Lantern of Insight from Fifth Dawn. This is another card that has a Mystery Booster Retail Edition foil, interestingly enough. That one's creeping up a little, but this one's going up $206 to $698. This is in the modern Lantern of Insight Eggs deck. It's also getting more commander play in Xanathar Guild Kingpin. Sliver Overlord from Scourge starting to creep up again, up $207 to $45.49. Many times this is a commander for Sliver builds. Other times you'll find it in the 99. Sarah's Sanctum, it's an expensive card, but if you have a copy, it is a good upgrade to Aura of Courage, another one of the new commander decks. Also, I'm seeing more players putting this in fresh Galea Kindler of Hope decks. It goes up 207 this week to 354.90. Treachery, another card that can go into Aura of Courage nicely, also in Galea Kindler of Hope decks from scratch. It goes up 209 to 98.23. Armageddon, the 5th edition copy, is going up 210 to 9.99. Last week we saw the 6th edition copy moving up. This week it's this copy that dried up online. It does see some commander play in various builds. Arcbound Ravager from Dark Steel. It goes up 210 this week to 32.60. This is in Modern Hardened Scales. Vintage, it's in Ravager shops. And in Commander, this is in Zabaz the Glimmerwasp and more there. Dance of Many from the Dark. This copy got a little dry online this week. It does get some commander play in Muldrotha the Gravetide and more. It goes up 217 this week to 13.99. Here's a big commander card that is still climbing, Dockside Extortionist. It goes up 223 this week to 64.53. Now this is seeing even more play in Fresh Prospered Tomebound builds or as an upgrade to Planar Portal. It's also in Kalain Reclusive Painter decks too now, and it did get mentioned in a Tolarian Community College video where it was part of a Stark of Wrath commander build. Blood Moon. These cards have been hot. That 8th edition copy still creeping up a little bit. It goes up 233 to 22.09. This is in a lot of builds in that new modern meta. Is it Tempo, Crashing Footfalls, Blitz, Gruul Midrange, Enchantress, Mono Red Aggro, plus much more. Also continues to see Legacy play, and it is seeing more commander play too in some of the Inferno of the Star Mounts decks. Debt of Loyalty, this goes up 238 to 32.35. This does see a little commander play, but again, here's an example of a card that was dry online this week, and it is on the reserve list. Rhystic Study, the copy from Mystery Booster. This is a huge commander staple. It's in so many builds, old and new. It goes up 240 this week to 41.75. Burgeoning, the original one from Stronghold, is up 241 to 27.98. This is a solid commander card currently, but it is getting a boost now from the Ren and 7 preview we saw earlier. Clouth Unrivaled Ancient. We mentioned this one earlier as a card that some people are building new commander decks around. This is the foil copy that comes in the Draconic Rage commander deck. It goes up 244 this week to $11.75. Now, aside from players building around this from scratch, I'm also seeing this put into new builds around some other cards that came from Draconic Rage, Verandis Rage of Ancients, or Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. This is also showing up in other Dragon tribal decks like the Ur-Dragon, for example, and now Tiamat. Sylvan Library, haven't seen this one in a while. The Eternal Master's copy goes up 272 this week to 53.50. In Legacy, it's in Miracles builds, Knight of the Reliquary, Lands, Maverick, and more. This also gets some vintage play, and it is a highly played commander card. Another good upgrade to Aura of Courage, also showing up in fresh Galea Kindler of Hope builds. This also did get a mention in a couple different episodes of the Command Zone podcast this week as well. Terminate from the list, and this was there through Keldheim. There's also a new copy of this card in Planar Portal, but this copy, still desirable. It goes up 273 to 864. In Modern, this is in Grixis, Rakdos, and Jund Luris. It's in Death Shadow builds and more. And when it comes to Commander, aside from being in builds around cards from Planar Portal, it's also getting Commander play in Kalain Reclusive Painter. Michiko Kanda Truthseeker, this goes up 273 to 31.74. This is a fairly popular commander and sees play in other builds like Queen Marchesa. Endurance, this goes up 275 to 35.90. This is seeing a ton of play in a lot of places. Modern, 5-color elementals, we talked about how hot that deck is right now. Also in Crashing Footfalls, Heliad Company, Yawgmoth Sacrifice, Living End, and more. Legacy, it's in Miracles builds, Knight of the Reliquary, Lands, Alurin, and more. Vintage, Sultai Midrange, and more there. This is also getting a good amount of commander play, and it is seeing even more play now in old Gnawbone decks. Okagachi Vengeful Kami, this is only found in foil. It goes up 279 to 1090. Now this is another dragon, also happens to be a spirit, but this is a commander some of the time. More often, however, you do see this in the 99 of builds like the Ur-Dragon or now Tiamat. One word of note though, one of the Innistrad Crimson Vow commander decks is called Spirit Squadron. Don't know anything else about it yet, but it looks like spirits could be getting a push in the future as well. Pathbreaker Ibex, this is the copy from Commander Anthology. It goes up 295 this week to 2330. This is a good upgrade to Draconic Rage, also in fresh builds around Wolfgar of Icewind Dale and Clouth Unrivaled Ancient. This is in other new builds too around cards from the main set, Volo Guide to Monsters, and Minsk Beloved Ranger. Mana Vault from Ultimate Masters, this goes up 316 to 109.24, and this is a great vintage card, great commander card. It's in various builds there, seeing more play now in Xanathar Guild Kingpin. Commander Greven Elvek, now this does get a little commander play. Also, it recently was given the Phyrexian creature type. Again, this is another card though that is on the reserve list that was dry this week online. It goes up 329 to 13.35. Thawing Glaciers from Alliances, another reserve list card, but this one does see more commander play than the previous one. It goes up 333 this week to 39.26. Cavern of Souls, Avacyn Restored up 284 to 92.94. Modern Masters 2017 up 334 to 94.90. Okay, first off, yes, this does see a lot of modern play. It's in 5-color elementals. Probably a big reason this is going up a little bit right now. Also an Amulet Titan, Eldrazi Tron, Humans, Goblins, Spirits, Merfolk, Elves, Soldiers. On top of that, it gets Legacy play and a little Vintage play. There are 4 of these in that Legacy Minotaur deck I mentioned earlier as well. Again, we're going to see another card from that one later too. Beyond all that though, this is a highly played commander card. It's in a lot of different decks there, including Dragon builds, one of them being Tiamat. Plus, I just mentioned one of those new commander decks from Crimson Vow was going to be called Spirit Squadron, while the other one is called Vampiric Bloodline. So it does sound like both of those potentially could have tribal components. And the 2 decks that are coming with Midnight Hunt are Coven Counters and Undead Unleashed. Undead Unleashed, maybe a zombie deck perhaps. More dragon goodness with Sign of the Ur-Dragon from Commander 2017. It goes up 378 this week to 999. Yep, it's sometimes a commander in dragon builds, or you might find it in the 99 of something like the Ur-Dragon or Tiamat. Primal Beyond. Do I see a Morningtide rare that's yet to be reprinted? I better use my 1 per video before I run out of time. If you watch these videos, you already know this, but this time period of Magic, there was a recession in the game. Less packs were cracked. So these rares, when they do not get reprinted somewhere else and people start paying attention to them, they tend to spike. So this one goes up 384 to 23.99. Why is that? Well, it does see a little commander play, but the big reason people are paying attention to it now is because it's in the modern 5-color elementals deck. Polluted Delta. Now this week we did see 1 Onslaught fetch land going down in value. Others are going up though, like this one, but also the Khans copy's going up. Khans of Tarkir up 236 to 53.52. Onslaught goes up 384 to 114.48. Maybe not a coincidence that this fetches islands or swamps, and of course the modern mill deck is Dimir. Oboro, Palace in the Clouds, goes up 394 this week to 75.75. In Modern, this is in Mill, the main reason it's going up this week. Sometimes it's in Merfolk. Also, this sees a little Legacy and some Commander play. I have been seeing this in some Volo Guide to Monsters builds. Liliana of the Veil from Modern Masters 2017 up 411 this week to 102.41. In Modern, this is in Jund builds, Mono Black and Orzhov Smallpox, Abzan Midrange, Stoneblade builds, and more. Also see some Legacy, Vintage, and Commander play. Engineered Explosives. This is another example of a solid sideboard card in this new Modern meta. This also gets a good amount of Legacy play and a little Commander play. Double Masters is up 239 to 17.24. Ultimate Masters goes up 249 to 18.03. Fifth Dawn goes up 416 to 35.72. Grenzo Havoc Razor. This goes up 427 this week to 21.99. Good upgrade to Planar Portal. Also in fresh builds around Prosper Tomebound and Karazika the Eye Tyrant. Grim Monolith. It goes up 446 this week to 349.99. In Legacy, you'll find this one in Cloudpost builds. It's also a great commander card and combo enabler in many decks there. Null Rod up 453 to 161.99. Gets a lot of Legacy, Vintage, and even Commander play. Jeska's Will. This goes up 460 this week to 1972. Sometimes this is in Legacy, the Epic Storm, but it is known for being a very big Commander card. Getting more play now is an upgrade to Planar Portal, also in fresh builds around Prosper. Additionally, this is a good upgrade to Draconic Rage, and it's in many fresh builds around Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. On top of that, this is in some other decks built around cards from the regular set, Inferno of the Star Mounts, and Kalain Reclusive Painter. Aggravated Assault, another good upgrade to Draconic Rage, and it's in new commander builds around some of the cards from there, Wolfgar of Icewind Dale, and Cloth Unrivaled Ancient. Plus, sometimes you'll find this in Delina Wild Mage decks. It did get a Command Zone podcast mention this week as well. Explorers of Ixalan goes up 292 to 23.97. Onslaught goes up 465 to 26.58. Edgar Markov, only found in foil. It's up 498 this week to 59.99. This is a wildly popular vampire tribal commander. We know Innistrad Crimson Vow will have a vampire focus, and like we said a moment ago, one of the commander decks coming out with that product is called Vampiric Bloodline. Goblin Wizard from the Dark, this is on the reserve list, and that is most likely the reason it's moving the way it is this week. It goes up 511 to 145, but it does see a little commander playing Goblin builds. Stoneforge Mystic from Double Masters, this card has been hot recently. It was spiking. Last week it retracted. This week it rebounds some, going up 659 to 7164. In Modern, this is in some big decks, Hammer Time, Stoneblade builds, Death and Taxes, and more. Legacy, also in Death and Taxes there. Stoneblade builds there too. Commander, it's another good upgrade to Aura of Courage. And again, I have seen some players using this in Fresh Galea, Kindler of Hope decks. Beyond that, you can even find this sometimes in Dristo Erden builds now, and Minsk Beloved Ranger decks. Necropotence, this is the copy from Deckmasters Garfield vs. Finkel, only found in foil. It stays hot, going up 735 this week to 129.99. You'll find this in Vintage Doomsday. This also gets a lot of commander play. The main reason, though, of course, you're seeing this kind of jump is because this particular copy is hard to find online right now in good condition. Tolarian Academy, of course, another card that's banned in Commander, so we can't blame that format. But this goes up 745 this week to 186.33. In Vintage, this is in Goldo Stacks, Paradoxical Outcome, and more. Bloodstained Mire, now this is an Onslaught fetch land that did dip recently. It is going up again now, though, up 758 to 89.99. Maybe not a coincidence that this fetches Swamps or Mountains, and Prosper Tomebound and Planar Portal are Rakdos colors. And here's another Onslaught fetch land that did dip recently, now going back up. Flooded Strand, it's up 836 to 93.99. Fury, this is on the move mostly because it's in the Modern 5-color Elementals deck. However, it's in a lot of other builds too there. Gruul Midrange, Mono Red Aggro, many times Crashing Footfalls and more. Legacy, it's in Mono Red Prison, Food Chain, sometimes Goblins and more there. Vintage, you'll find this in Hollowvine, and it is getting more commander play now in Delina Wild Mage. This is up 946 to 21.97. Didgeridoo, this goes up 1841 to 39.99, and yes, this is a reserve list card, but there is a really good reason this one's moving. Of course, you know this already gets some commander play in like Sethron Hurlin General and Neheb the Worthy, but like I've been alluding to a couple times in the video, there was a Minotaur deck in Legacy that did really well on Magic the Gathering Online. In fact, it even 5-0'd a tournament on MTGO, and it was running 4 copies of this card. Once word of that got out, some Legacy players wanted to pick this card up, and speculators also gravitated back to this card. Who else could finish this section other than the Ur-Dragon from Commander 2017? Only comes in foil. There is a Secret Lair foil copy as well that is moving up, but not moving to this degree. This one is jumping 2364 to 7231. You know why this is going up. It has to do with, of course, the Dragon Tribal support in Adventures of the Forgotten Realms, and this is a huge commander for Dragon builds. Also, this can show up in the 99 of builds like Tiamat. And that takes us to the premium spotlight. Again, I can't talk about everything that's happening in the premium market. There's just too much to go over. But I like to give you at least a few cards every week as kind of a taste of what's happening. Not just cards that are being bought out or drying up in the marketplace. I try to choose some that are moving because of some piece of news, a preview card, a new deck maybe is pushing them. Now, much like the vintage section, you're going to see prices on the screen that are very reminiscent of what you might see on a price tracking website. And again, if something doesn't quite line up with the true sales, I'll let you know. How can I resist the Sign of the Ur-Dragon foil from Time Spiral? This goes up $16.93 to $141.99. Is that for real? Well, I have seen high-grade raw copies of this sell for about $100. So, with the non-foil copies moving, it is possible that a future sale could get close to this. This is most likely a case where sellers are trying to stay ahead of the spike, but they typically will take a reasonable offer. And finally, Wrenn and 6 the foil from Modern Horizons up 90.59 to 407.43. Is that for real? Same thing here. I think sellers are trying to stay ahead of the spike. I have seen high-grade raw copies sell for about $300. If Wrenn and 7 does indeed push this card in Commander or anywhere else, this could see more growth and get closer to this price point, assuming another foil copy doesn't get released in a Secret Lair or something like that. Alright, that concludes this episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. I hope you found it helpful. And if you're still here, thanks for sticking with me. As always, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.